Yes, I can help with JoshuaSelman sermons. Apostle JoshuaSelman is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher, and founder of Monomanias, Eternity Network International. His sermons are widely known for their depth. As Sunday, 28th December 2025, start your Sunday with prayer. Beloved, understand this truth. Every day is a gift, but Sunday is a gate. It is not just the end of a week. It is the beginning of spiritual alignment. How you start your Sunday determines the direction of your week. Many people rush into activities, conversations, and plans without first securing their spirit. That is a costly mistake. Beloved, it is important to understand that Sunday is not merely a date on the calendar or a convenient pause between weeks. Sunday is a spiritual gate. In the realm of the spirit, gates determine access, flow, and authority. Whoever controls a gate determines what enters and what exits. This is why the way you approach Sunday matters deeply, because how you enter a gate determines what you experience beyond it. Many people treat Sunday as a day of rest alone, but rest without alignment can become vulnerability. Sunday is designed by God to be a point of recalibration, a moment where heaven invites you to realign your spirit before engaging the demands of life again. Throughout Scripture, gates are symbolic of beginnings, transitions, and authority. When a new season opens, God always looks for alignment at the gate. Sunday stands as that weekly spiritual gateway where destinies can be corrected, burdens can be lifted, and directions can be redefined. If you enter Sunday casually, you may unknowingly authorize confusion, delay, and spiritual weakness into the coming days. But when you enter with prayer, reverence, and spiritual awareness, you authorize grace, clarity, and divine backing for the entire week. Many struggles people face during the week are not caused by the week itself, but by how Sunday was entered. When the gate is unguarded, anything can pass through. Fear, anxiety, distraction, and weariness take advantage of unguarded spiritual moments. Prayer on Sunday is how you guard the gate. It is how you stand spiritually alert and declare that your life, your family, your work, and your destiny will not be accessed by negative forces. When prayer stands at the gate, confusion cannot enter freely. Sunday as a gate also represents transition. You are moving from one cycle into another. The spiritual atmosphere of the past week must be addressed before stepping into the next. Without prayer, residue from previous battles, conversations, disappointments, and pressures remains unchecked. Prayer becomes the spiritual cleansing that prepares you for what is ahead. It allows you to close doors that should not remain open and open doors that must not stay shut. There is also a principle of priority attached to gates. The first voice at the gate often determines the direction of movement. If the first voice you hear on Sunday is fear, social media, complaints, or pressure, that voice begins to shape your mindset for the week. But when the first voice is prayer, when the first influence is divine presence, your spirit gains authority over your emotions and circumstances. You are no longer reacting to life. You are leading it from a place of spiritual advantage. A gate is not just an entrance. It is also a place of decision. Sunday is where you choose who leads your week. Prayer is the language of surrender and authority combined. You surrender your plans to God, but you also receive authority to command your week according to divine will. This is why prayer on Sunday must be deliberate. You are not filling time, you are making declarations that shape outcomes. Those who understand Sunday as a spiritual gate do not rush it. They approach it with intention. They understand that spiritual strength for the week is not accidental, it is cultivated. When prayer becomes the key that opens Sunday, The weak responds with alignment. Strength replaces weakness, clarity replaces confusion, and peace replaces anxiety. The gate has been rightly entered, and destiny flows unhindered. Beloved, prayer is often misunderstood because many approach it as though they are trying to persuade God, explain their problems, or inform Him of situations He is already aware of. This misunderstanding weakens spiritual effectiveness. Prayer is not information, it is alignment. Alignment means bringing your heart, your thoughts, your will, and your expectations into agreement with the divine agenda. When alignment happens, resistance reduces, clarity increases, and grace flows naturally. Prayer is the process through which a human being synchronizes with heaven. God does not need updates. He sees the end from the beginning and understands the realities of the unseen realm more clearly than any human ever could. Yet, He invites prayer because prayer adjusts the one praying. It tunes your spirit to perceive what God is already doing. Many times, the greatest outcome of prayer is not a change in circumstance, but a change in posture. When your posture changes, your response to life becomes wiser, calmer, and more authoritative. Alignment through prayer involves the renewal of perspective. Human emotions, experiences, and pressures often distort judgment. Without prayer, decisions are made from fear, haste, or insecurity. Prayer realigns vision. It removes the noise of the flesh and the confusion of external voices. In prayer, priorities are reordered. What once felt urgent may lose its power, and what truly matters begins to take center stage. This is how prayer preserves destiny from costly mistakes. Another dimension of alignment is submission. Prayer brings the will of man under the authority of God without diminishing dignity. In true prayer, you do not lose control, you gain direction. When you pray sincerely, you acknowledge that your understanding is limited and you invite divine wisdom to lead you. This is why aligned prayer produces peace even before answers manifest. Peace is the evidence that alignment has occurred. Alignment also brings spiritual sensitivity. When a radio is properly tuned, signals become clear. Prayer tunes the human spirit. It sharpens discernment, enabling you to recognize divine nudges, warnings, and opportunities. Many people miss critical moments, not because God did not speak, but because they were misaligned. Prayer restores sensitivity, allowing you to move with divine timing rather than human impulse. There is power released when alignment happens. In the realm of the Spirit, authority flows through alignment. When your will agrees with God's will, heaven backs your declarations. This is why some prayers produce results effortlessly, while others feel heavy and unproductive. It is not the length of prayer that produces power, but the degree of alignment. When alignment is achieved, words carry weight and declarations gain momentum. Alignment through prayer also protects the heart. Life has a way of slowly shifting focus away from divine purpose. Prayer brings correction without condemnation. It gently redirects the heart toward truth, righteousness, and obedience. Over time, this alignment builds spiritual stability. You are no longer easily shaken by circumstances because your anchor is secured in divine will. When prayer is seen as alignment rather than information, it becomes a lifestyle rather than a reaction. You stop praying only when trouble arises and begin praying as a means of staying in rhythm with heaven. This posture produces consistency, maturity, and spiritual authority. Alignment ensures that when you move, heaven moves with you, and when you speak, grace enforces your words. Beloved, there is a spiritual law that governs influence and control. Whatever takes first place gains authority over everything that follows. This principle operates quietly but consistently in the lives of individuals, families, and even nations. The first focus of your heart the first voice you submit to, and the first action you take at the beginning of a cycle sets the tone for what unfolds afterward. When God is given first place, order is established. When God is delayed, confusion finds space to operate. First place is not about time alone. It is about honor, attention, and priority. Many people claim God is important to them, yet He is not first in their decisions, responses, or affections. The danger here is subtle. Whatever replaces God in first place begins to shape values, reactions, and outcomes. When prayer is postponed, distractions assume control. When spiritual alignment is delayed, emotional impulses take over. Life will always follow the strongest voice at the beginning. In the realm of the Spirit, beginnings carry authority. The first act of a day, a week, or a season functions like a foundation. If that foundation is weak or misplaced, everything built upon it becomes unstable. This is why starting with prayer is not optional for those who desire consistency and victory. Prayer at the beginning is a declaration that God governs the process, not just the outcome. It invites divine order into human activity. When God takes first place, priorities begin to align naturally. Decisions become clearer, relationships become healthier, and distractions lose their power. This is not because problems disappear, but because authority has been established. First place determines control. If fear takes first place, it will dominate your thoughts and decisions. If pressure takes first place, you will live reactively. But when God takes first place, peace becomes your posture and wisdom becomes your guide. There is also a spiritual covering that comes from honoring God first. Scripture reveals that what is first is consecrated. Consecration releases protection and favor. When the beginning of your week, your plans, or your efforts is surrendered through prayer, the remainder is preserved by grace. This is why prayer is not wasted time, it is investment. You are not losing hours, you are gaining alignment that saves you from unnecessary battles. First place is proven by consistency, not intention. It is easy to say God is first, but the evidence is found in what you do before everything else demands your attention. When prayer leads, discipline is strengthened. When prayer leads, clarity replaces anxiety. When prayer leads, strength is renewed before challenges arise. This positioning creates resilience. You are no longer trying to recover from pressure. You are prepared before it comes. Another dimension of first place is authority over influence. The first input often becomes the loudest voice. If the first input of your Sunday or week is chaos, entertainment, or negativity, those influences quietly shape your emotions and expectations. But when prayer is the first input, it becomes the reference point for interpreting everything else. You begin to measure situations through faith rather than fear. Giving God first place is not an act of desperation. It is an act of wisdom. It acknowledges that life is spiritual before it is physical. When God is first, the rest finds order. When God leads, grace enforces your steps. First place is not just a position. It is a spiritual law that guarantees stability, direction, and sustained victory. Beloved, spiritual sensitivity is the ability of the heart and the spirit to accurately perceive divine signals, promptings, and instructions. It is not automatic, it must be maintained. Life has a way of dulling spiritual awareness through pressure, routine, emotional exhaustion, and constant noise. Without intentional restoration, the spirit becomes crowded, distracted, and slow to respond. This is why prayer is essential. Prayer restores spiritual sensitivity by clearing inner congestion and reawakening the awareness of God's presence and voice. Throughout the week, the soul absorbs many impressions, conversations, disappointments, victories, conflicts, expectations, and fears. These experiences settle quietly within, often without notice. Over time, they accumulate and begin to interfere with discernment. A person may still believe, still serve, and still speak faith, yet lack sharp spiritual perception. Prayer becomes the cleansing process. It brings light into the inner chambers of the heart and allows unnecessary weight to be released. Spiritual sensitivity is closely tied to stillness. When the inner man is restless, it becomes difficult to discern direction. Prayer slows the soul. It separates the urgent from the important and the loud from the divine. In this quiet alignment, the spirit regains clarity. Thoughts become ordered, emotions stabilize, and inner confusion begins to dissolve. Sensitivity is not found in busyness. It is recovered in intentional communion. Another function of prayer is recalibration. Just as instruments require tuning to remain accurate, the human spirit needs regular adjustment. Without prayer, even sincere believers may drift slightly off course. That drift is often subtle, but dangerous over time. Prayer realigns motives, intentions, and expectations. It corrects spiritual posture before errors become visible in actions. Through prayer, the heart is gently guided back into harmony with divine truth. Sensitivity also determines obedience. Many delays in destiny are not caused by rebellion, but by dull perception. When spiritual sensitivity is weakened, instructions may be misunderstood or completely missed. Prayer sharpens hearing. It heightens awareness of divine nudges and warnings. A sensitive spirit recognizes when to move, when to wait, and when to resist. This discernment saves time, energy, and destiny. Prayer restores the ability to distinguish between spiritual hunger and emotional craving. In moments of fatigue, people often seek comfort instead of direction. Prayer brings clarity to desires. It exposes false urgencies and redirects the heart toward what truly satisfies. This restoration protects the believer from making decisions based on pressure rather than purpose. Another vital aspect of spiritual sensitivity is recognizing spiritual atmospheres. Not every opportunity is an assignment, and not every open door is divinely authorized. Prayer sharpens awareness of seasons and timings. It allows the spirit to discern whether a moment requires action, restraint, or intercession. Sensitivity keeps you from forcing outcomes prematurely or missing critical windows. When prayer restores spiritual sensitivity, confidence increases. You are no longer guessing your way through life. Even when answers are not immediate, there is an inner assurance that direction will come. This confidence produces peace, not arrogance. It is the calm strength that comes from knowing you are aligned. Without sensitivity, spiritual life becomes mechanical. With sensitivity restored, faith becomes dynamic and responsive. Prayer keeps the heart awake. It maintains alertness in a world designed to dull spiritual perception. When sensitivity is restored, your walk becomes intentional, your decisions become wiser, and your life begins to reflect divine order and purpose. Beloved, prayer is far more than personal devotion or emotional expression. Prayer is spiritual legislation. In the unseen realm, laws operate, territories are governed, and authority is exercised through words spoken in alignment with divine will. When a believer prays with understanding, they are not merely requesting change, they are issuing decrees that establish boundaries and authorize outcomes. Prayer is how heaven's verdict is enforced on earth. Spiritual legislation means that prayer gives legal permission for divine intervention. God, though sovereign, operates within spiritual principles. He honors authority, order, and alignment. When prayer is offered, it becomes an invitation that allows divine power to act within human affairs. This is why certain things remain unchanged, not because God is unwilling, but because spiritual authorization has not been granted through prayer. Prayer opens legal doors in the spirit. When you pray, you are speaking ahead of time. You are not waiting for circumstances to define your response. You are defining the outcome before it manifests. This is one of the highest expressions of faith. Faith does not react, faith legislates. Through prayer, you declare what is permitted and what is forbidden. You draw spiritual lines that circumstances must respect. This is why prayer must be intentional and informed by truth. Boundaries are essential in the spiritual realm. Without boundaries, anything can invade a life. Fear, confusion, delay, and oppression. Prayer establishes these boundaries. It declares that certain patterns will not continue, that certain influences will not prevail, and that certain seasons must come to an end. In prayer, you stand as a watchman over your destiny. You decide what is allowed access. Spiritual legislation also involves commanding alignment. Many aspects of life remain disorderly because they have not been spoken into alignment. Prayer addresses systems, timelines, and processes. You command peace where there is turmoil. You command clarity where there is confusion. You command strength where there is weakness. These commands are not emotional outbursts. They are lawful declarations backed by spiritual authority. Another dimension of legislative prayer is timing. Prayer allows you to speak into the future. You can decree favor before meetings happen, wisdom before decisions are made, and protection before journeys begin. This proactive posture shifts you from survival to dominion. You are no longer trying to escape problems. You are preventing them through spiritual foresight. Prayer also confronts resistance. Not every delay is natural. Some oppositions are spiritual and require authoritative response. In prayer, you resist forces that seek to hinder progress. You declare the supremacy of divine purpose over every opposing influence. This resistance is not based on volume, but on authority. Authority flows from alignment, and alignment is established through prayer. Legislative prayer must be rooted in understanding. Random words carry little weight, but aligned declarations carry power. This is why prayer must be grounded in truth, faith, and spiritual discernment. When your words agree with divine intent, they are enforced by heaven. This partnership between divine will and human voice produces unstoppable outcomes. When believers understand prayer as legislation, they approach it with responsibility. They become careful with words, deliberate with declarations, and consistent in intercession. They realize that silence can permit what prayer could prevent. Through prayer, destiny is guarded, environments are shaped, and futures are secured. Prayer is not passive, it is the highest form of spiritual authority entrusted to man. Beloved, intentional prayer is prayer that is offered with purpose, understanding, and spiritual focus. It is not casual speech or routine repetition. It is deliberate engagement with divine reality. Many people pray, yet few pray intentionally. The difference between the two is direction. Intentional prayer knows what it is addressing, why it is addressing it, and what outcome is expected. This level of prayer produces clarity and peace because it aligns the heart with divine order. Confusion often thrives where prayer lacks intention. When prayer is vague, results are uncertain. Intentional prayer forces the believer to confront their true needs, motives, and expectations. It brings honesty before God. In this honesty, clarity begins to emerge. You begin to understand what matters, what can wait, and what must be confronted immediately. Intentional prayer removes the fog that clouds judgment and replaces it with spiritual precision. Peace is one of the strongest evidences of intentional prayer. This peace does not always come from immediate answers, but from assurance. When prayer is intentional, the spirit settles. Anxiety loses its grip because the heart knows that matters have been properly committed to divine hands. This peace is not passive resignation, it is confident rest. It is the calm assurance that alignment has taken place. Intentional prayer also disciplines the mind. Human thoughts tend to wander, especially under pressure. Intentional prayer gathers scattered thoughts and brings them into submission. It trains the mind to focus on truth rather than fear. Over time, this discipline strengthens emotional stability. Decisions are no longer driven by impulse, but by insight gained in prayer. Another outcome of intentional prayer is discernment. When prayer is focused, the spirit becomes more attentive to divine instruction. You begin to recognize patterns, warnings, and opportunities with greater accuracy. Discernment grows because intentional prayer sharpens spiritual awareness. You learn to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, between what is good and what is divinely assigned. Intentional prayer also establishes spiritual confidence. Uncertainty weakens authority, but clarity strengthens it. When you pray intentionally, you speak with conviction. Your declarations carry weight because they are rooted in understanding. This confidence does not come from self-assurance, but from alignment. You know you are standing on solid spiritual ground. Another vital effect of intentional prayer is emotional healing. Many emotional wounds persist because they are never addressed intentionally. Intentional prayer allows suppressed fears, disappointments, and frustrations to be processed in the presence of God. This processing brings healing. Peace replaces inner turmoil, and strength replaces emotional fatigue. Consistency is also strengthened through intentional prayer. When prayer has purpose, it becomes sustainable. You are no longer praying out of habit or obligation, but out of desire for alignment. This consistency builds spiritual maturity. Over time, you become less reactive to circumstances and more responsive to divine guidance. Intentional prayer also prepares you for action. Prayer is not an escape from responsibility. It is preparation for effective action. When prayer clarifies direction, action becomes easier and more accurate. You move with confidence because you are not guessing. You are acting from insight gained in prayer. When prayer is intentional, life becomes ordered. Confusion diminishes, peace increases, and direction becomes clearer. Intentional prayer is not about length or eloquence. It is about alignment and purpose. Through it, the believer gains clarity of vision and peace of heart, walking steadily in divine order. Beloved, intentional prayer is prayer that is offered with purpose, understanding, and spiritual focus. It is not casual speech or routine repetition. It is deliberate engagement with divine reality. Many people pray, yet few pray intentionally. The difference between the two is direction. Intentional prayer knows what it is addressing, why it is addressing it, and what outcome is expected. This level of prayer produces clarity and peace because it aligns the heart with divine order. Confusion often thrives where prayer lacks intention. When prayer is vague, results are uncertain. Intentional prayer forces the believer to confront their true needs, motives, and expectations. It brings honesty before God. In this honesty, clarity begins to emerge. You begin to understand what matters, what can wait, and what must be confronted immediately. Intentional prayer removes the fog that clouds judgment and replaces it with spiritual precision. Peace is one of the strongest evidences of intentional prayer. This peace does not always come from immediate answers, but from assurance. When prayer is intentional, the spirit settles. Anxiety loses its grip because the heart knows that matters have been properly committed into divine hands. This peace is not passive resignation, it is confident rest. It is the calm assurance that alignment has taken place. Intentional prayer also disciplines the mind. Human thoughts tend to wander, especially under pressure. Intentional prayer gathers scattered thoughts and brings them into submission. It trains the mind to focus on truth rather than fear. Over time, this discipline strengthens emotional stability. Decisions are no longer driven by impulse, but by insight gained in prayer. Another outcome of intentional prayer is discernment. When prayer is focused, the spirit becomes more attentive to divine instruction. You begin to recognize patterns, warnings, and opportunities with greater accuracy. Discernment grows because intentional prayer sharpens spiritual awareness. You learn to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, between what is good and what is divinely assigned. Intentional prayer also establishes spiritual confidence. Uncertainty weakens authority, but clarity strengthens it. When you pray intentionally, you speak with conviction. Your declarations carry weight because they are rooted in understanding. This confidence does not come from self-assurance, but from alignment. You know you are standing on solid spiritual ground. Another vital effect of intentional prayer is emotional healing. Many emotional wounds persist because they are never addressed intentionally. Intentional prayer allows suppressed fears, disappointments, and frustrations to be processed in the presence of God. This processing brings healing. Peace replaces inner turmoil, and strength replaces emotional fatigue. Consistency is also strengthened through intentional prayer. When prayer has purpose, it becomes sustainable. You are no longer praying out of habit or obligation, but out of desire for alignment. This consistency builds spiritual maturity. Over time, you become less reactive to circumstances and more responsive to divine guidance. Intentional prayer also prepares you for action. Prayer is not an escape from responsibility, it is preparation for effective action. When prayer clarifies direction, action becomes easier and more accurate. You move with confidence because you are not guessing. You are acting from insight gained in prayer. When prayer is intentional, life becomes ordered. Confusion diminishes, peace increases, and direction becomes clearer. Intentional prayer is not about length or eloquence, it is about alignment and purpose. Through it, the believer gains clarity of vision and peace of heart, walking steadily in divine order. Beloved, there is a spiritual principle that governs consistency in victory. When prayer becomes the foundation, outcomes begin to align with divine intent. A prayerful beginning is not merely symbolic, it is causal. When a week is initiated in prayer, the spiritual climate is set, and that climate influences everything that unfolds. Victory, in this sense, is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of divine advantage in the midst of them. A prayerful Sunday positions the believer ahead of pressure. Instead of reacting to issues as they arise, prayer allows you to address matters before they manifest. This proactive posture shifts your experience from survival to dominion. You are no longer trying to recover from spiritual attacks or emotional strain. You are fortified before they come. Prayer strengthens the inner man, ensuring that when challenges arise, they meet resistance rather than vulnerability. Victory is sustained by perspective. Prayer shapes how you interpret circumstances. When prayer leads, setbacks do not produce despair, and delays do not create panic. The heart remains steady because it has already encountered divine reassurance. This steadiness is a form of victory. Many people lose battles not because circumstances are too strong, but because their inner posture collapses. Prayer stabilizes the heart. Another dimension of victory is wisdom. A prayerful beginning invites divine insight into daily decisions. Wisdom reduces unnecessary conflict, preserves relationships, and prevents costly mistakes. When wisdom is present, life becomes more efficient. Victory is not only about overcoming opposition, it is also about avoiding traps. Prayer sharpens discernment so that paths are chosen wisely. A prayerful Sunday also establishes spiritual covering. In prayer, you commit your week into divine care. This covering does not eliminate challenges, but it limits their impact. Certain battles never reach full intensity because they are intercepted in the spirit. This is how prayer saves time, energy, and emotional strength. Victory often manifests as what did not happen. Consistency in victory is rooted in alignment. Prayer ensures that your actions are synchronized with divine timing. When alignment exists, efforts produce results. When alignment is missing, even hard work becomes exhausting. Prayer aligns your pace, ensuring you do not move ahead of grace or lag behind opportunity. This rhythm sustains progress. Another aspect of victory is peace. Peace is not weakness, it is spiritual strength under control. Prayer cultivates peace that guards the heart and mind. With peace, decisions are made calmly, words are spoken wisely, and reactions are measured. This composure prevents self-inflicted losses. A peaceful heart is difficult to defeat. Prayer also reinforces faith. Faith grows when the Spirit consistently encounters divine presence. This growth produces confidence that transcends circumstances. When faith is strong, challenges are seen as temporary, not terminal. This outlook sustains perseverance. Victory often belongs to those who remain steady when others give up. A prayerful Sunday creates momentum. Momentum is spiritual energy accumulated through alignment. When prayer fuels the beginning, each day builds upon the last. Strength increases rather than diminishes. This momentum carries you through demanding moments without collapse. You finish the week stronger than you started. Ultimately, a prayerful Sunday guarantees victory because it invites divine participation into human effort. When God leads, outcomes change. Victory becomes a pattern, not an exception. Life may still present challenges, but they no longer define the journey. Prayer ensures that grace walks ahead, strength walks within, and favor walks around you, securing triumph throughout the week.